Hello, everyone. Welcome to the SavvyCast. This is Jamie, and I'm very grateful to all of you who are joining today, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast. I have as my guest today, Kali and Joshua Fontanilla. They are both married. They both have masters in education. I want to share just a bit about them before I welcome them on. Kali has 15 years experience as an educator working in both public and Christian schools, teaching multiple subjects and grade levels. She was instrumental in stopping Prop 16 in California and the push for legal reverse racism. She's an outspoken opponent of critical race theory. She's been on multiple publications. She's been on Dr. Phil, her husband Joshua, who's also an educator and a former public high school teacher. He loves history, economics, and biblical studies. He's a dynamic public speaker and a former California state director, as well as West Regional Director for BLEXIT. Thrilled today to welcome to the SavvyCast, Kali and Joshua Fontanilla. Kali and Joshua, welcome to the SavvyCast.
Well, hello. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
I'm so grateful that y'all have joined me today. And I just had a little chit chat with you all, and I have to apologize that I have been mispronouncing your name. Kali, can you tell us how to remember how to pronounce your name?
It's Kali, like cauliflower.
I love that. And I will tell you, it's a beautiful name. I have never heard that pronunciation, and I just think it's a gorgeous name.
Oh,
Kali.
Thank you.
And Joshua?
Yeah, so this is my husband, Joshua Fontanilla. And one of the first things I asked him, because I'm really picky about names, is what was his last name? So when it was in the first 2 hours of our conversation, I was like, what's your last name? And when he said Fontanilla, I was like, oh, I love that last name.
Yeah, good name.
Yeah.
That is a great name. And I will tell you, I mispronounced that as well. The L's are silent. So
yeah.
You do like your knee, Fontanilla.
Fontanilla. Guys, I should have done my homework better before. Done a lot of other digging about all that we're going to talk about today, but the names I fell short there. But
you're not the only one. That is very common to mispronounce because it's spelled Kali, so it looks like California.
Yeah.
Should
we introduce the name of this little guy as well?
Oh yes, we have a special Fontanilla member.
He's sleeping, but.
Oh, he is so welcome. I love him. I wish I could come squeeze his sweet.
So this is our 8-week-old Chihuahua mix named Eli, and we just got him yesterday. So
forgive me if I'm distracted with him on my lap.
Oh, he's so mellow. He's going to be a very mellow little angel as he grows.
He's just playing.
And that's what we need with how crazy the world is right now.
Yeah.
And I lost my dog 3 months ago. We had another Chihuahua. And he was my husband is my husband, but my dog was my lover. And we lost him. And that's been really hard for me because of what I do as an educational advocate for what's going on in our nation's schools. And I get so much hate and there's so much negativity. And it's also really depressing. Yeah. It's important for me to have things that fill my cup back up. And one of them was I love dogs. So being blessed with this little Eli, he's just perfect. I mean, I have never seen such a cute puppy in my life. So I'm really excited to have him.
He's precious. And I'm so glad y'all have him right there as we talk. But okay, guys, lots to dig into. But first, Kali, you share what you would choose as your last meal. Then we'll let Joshua share what he would choose.
I really like lentil soup and biscuits.
Ooh.
So and I make that for myself when I just want something really cozy and warm and just comforting. So I'd probably have lentil soup and biscuits. And gosh,
for very earthy girl.
Yeah, and then for dessert, maybe some sort of a really good chocolate chip cookie. I love chocolate chip cookies.
Just
maybe with a scoop of ice cream on it.
I love that you chose lentil soup. And I know you probably live near a Trader Joe's. You know, they have those steamed lentils that they're already. I have very popular recipe on the blog it's like 30 minutes start to finish using those. So yummy. I love lentil soup too.
Yeah, it just hits the spot for me. And we're vegetarians as well. So that's kind of like, yeah. So when you are vegetarian, you want something that's going to fill you up because meat doesn't, meat does that, but beans help to fill
plant
you up.
Protein. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Joshua, what would your last meal be?
All I'm coming up with right now, because this little guy kept us up all night. So forgive me if my brain's a little foggy, but Kali makes amazing fake ribs, which it's like my favorite thing that she makes. It's from wheat gluten and peanut butter, and she makes them into, men love ribs.
Do they taste like barbecue ribs?
Well, it's all about the sauce. She just soaks the
good
and then I make homemade beans with them and greens and cornbread.
And I would probably throw in some plantains.
Yeah, he likes plantains.
Plantains are
I'm Jamaican, so he gets like Jamaican style food from me.
Yeah, some fried plantains on the side.
This is probably a very interesting answer.
If you share that recipe, I'm going to want that because that sounds fabulous. Yes. I have the real baby back ribs, the meat version, and collard greens. I'm a Southern cook to the core, so a version for vegetarians would be awesome. So that's impressive. Well, you just referenced that you have Jamaican ancestry. I would like for you to tell, because that's going to be something that I think is noteworthy.
Yeah, my mom is white and my dad's Jamaican. He was an immigrant from Jamaica. He was actually illegal for pretty much my whole life until the last couple of years. He came over from Jamaica. My mom and him fell in love. My mom was about 21 and he was like 23, and they had me. Then my husband, he's actually Mexican and Puerto Rican and white. Mm-hmm. So we're very mixed.
Wow.
And so
y'all are beautiful. Whatever, it all came together beautifully for both of you. That is great that you've got such a diverse background, both of you. And can you just tell us a little bit about where you live and sort of just a little glimpse into we're going to get into in the education aspect?
Like our background in education?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, and you're in California still, correct?
No, we're in Florida.
We fled.
Yeah, we're refugees. Like, we got away from the craziness.
Okay, I was wondering. I did not know that you had moved, but I wondered with your beliefs and your outspoken platform, how you would be handling it to be in California. So, how long have you been in Florida?
Almost 3 years now. We both were raised in California, so Central Coast. She was raised in Santa Cruz, which, if you know the area, it's kind of a little bit of a hippie liberal town, surfer town. And I was raised in Salinas, which is it's a Mexican community. So even though I'm Puerto Rican, I was raised among Chicanos, Mexicans, and didn't know the Puerto Rican side. So I was very much a Mexican culture. We were both, in that California culture. So I guess, that's probably part of the reason why we're vegetarians. We got that little weirdo-ness with us, but yeah.
Did y'all meet okay, so both of you have masters in education and have many years under your belt as educators in both public and private. Give us a little glimpse into that. And is that where and how you all met?
Well, my first job in public schools was when I was 18 as a reading tutor. So I'm now 41. I was a public school teacher for 15 years with my own classroom, but I have been in the public schools in California. That was my career, and had tenure. I loved what I did. My husband, he actually was an accountant before.
I did a lot of jobs.
Yes.
I used to call myself Josh of all trades.
Yes. And I was trying to convince him to become a teacher because I really wanted us to have the same schedule. And I knew he would do well once he found his age that he wanted to be with, not the little ones.
Yeah.
But,
and I like high school.
And so he became a teacher 3 years before we left California. So for 3 years, he was a public school teacher in Salinas with me in the same district, but we weren't in the same school.
But I had done ministry before, so I did a lot of public speaking.
Yeah.
So and teaching, basically an associate pastor. So it transferred over pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. What school district? I know y'all were in the same one. Which one was that?
So Salinas Union High School District, which is in Salinas, California, which is known as a very high poverty, high gang rate,
Where I grew up.
Yeah, a lot of teachers shy away from teaching there, but we absolutely loved it. And I loved what I did. I should still be in the classroom today, but because of what's going on in the educational system, we're here now running our own school. But if I could snap my fingers and go back to just the life I had 5 years ago, teaching my students, I taught the English learners and I taught the low readers. My husband's an English teacher, and we loved what we did. It was very stable. It was good income because they actually paid us pretty well in California, and we were enjoying it. But our public educational system has changed so much this last 5 years. The parents of America need to know that what they experienced in high school is completely different. The parents and grandparents, even people that are 25 even had a different experience of what these kids are getting now in our public schools.
When did you see that? Because Kali, you've been in it for so long. You said the last 5 years you saw a radical shift.
Yes. Well, for one, a lot of it was always there. And this is something that this is where we made a mistake. We started having rainbow after school clubs about 25 years ago. It was usually the inner city schools that would have them. You go into the school and there'd be rainbows everywhere. And I remember being like, okay, because I started off as a substitute teacher. Mm-hmm. And I'd go into some of these schools that were in the more inner city areas and I'd see rainbows. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And then slowly that became bigger, these rainbow clubs where kids would get together with teacher advisors and talk about their sexuality in a LGBTQ rainbow club. And that has been around for 25 years. That's been a norm in almost every high school campus and most middle schools in America, public middle schools. They all have these clubs. And America just kind of let it happen.
And didn't teachers were actually
Teachers are the advisors. So you can't have a club, an after school club, without a teacher advisor. So usually the teacher that was part of that community would be the advisors. And so you think about what's happening at these clubs. If it's a club based on your sexual orientation and gender identity, what are they doing in these clubs? What are they talking about? And so that's where it really started. But then they started bringing the club talk, what they were doing in these clubs, talking about gender identity and sexual orientation. They started bringing that into the classroom really heavily the last 5-6 years.
Like all the time.
Yes.
When you say that, you mean things that were mandated as far as the curriculum of the schools. They started saying, we want teachers to teach this, and it was the gender issues.
It's in the health classes. And so that's the other thing that happened. Is
okay.
Health class used to be for 9th and 10th graders. I remember when I was in high school, it was for 10th graders was when you got health and sex ed. Well, now it's 5th grade. And now some states like New Jersey have a health curriculum from kindergarten through 12. And in it is the gender identity and sexual orientation stuff. So in kindergarten, but I think by 2nd grade in New Jersey, kids need to know all the different gender identities. And so that's where they're hiding. That's where they're putting a lot of this gender ideology is in the health class. And every kid has to have a health class. And it's starting younger and younger and younger. It used to be, again, 10th grade. Now it's 5th grade across the nation. And then now there's some certain states like New Jersey that's starting it from kindergarten through 12. And that's where they insert that gender stuff.
Kali, are they required to let parents know that is what they're teaching? Are they required, or is this just creeping in?
So, go ahead. You can answer that.
Yeah, no. Well, in California, I know that they've set up the laws specifically so that you're automatically opted into all this stuff, unless you specifically ask to opt out. And now they're even trying to push it so you can't
get rid of that
if you want to. So it's been slowly worse and worse. It's all they start with the idea of, so they'll send this packet home at the beginning of the year with just a ton of papers, and one of them in there that they'll slip in is, hey, if you don't want your kid to be in this or that. And
they don't explain that it has this gender identity and sexual. They say it's the health class where the kids learn reproductive health and blah, blah, blah. And so parents are like, okay, yeah, check mark. I had that as a kid. So I'll make sure, I won't opt out, because you have to sign it to opt out. Your child's automatically in these classes, in these courses, but you can opt out as a parent. And that's really good for parents to know. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're a parent and you have a child in public school, please call it as soon as possible and tell them you want your child to be opted out of all lessons containing any sort of Black Lives Matter propaganda, critical race theory propaganda, and all of their health lessons, that you will be the one to teach your child health, because that's what they do. They sneak into the health classes. And I actually have a letter, and I'll post it I always post it around the end of the school year and in the summer, a letter that parents can give to their administrators that basically says, I want my child, and their teacher too, that if you teach these subjects, please let me see the curriculum and please opt my child out until I can see it and approve it.
Okay. And it's really good to do all that kind of stuff as much as possible. And, and a lot of parents don't have the time or aren't engaged enough to know, or just kind of assume that it's, like it was for us in the 80s and 90s, and it's not crazy like it is now. But the thing is, even if you do those, even if you do the opt-out,
there's still teachers that will do it.
The reality is, when
they can hide it.
The doors of the classroom, there's a lot of freedom that you can get away with.
Yes.
And kids don't tell their parents because they're embarrassed.
Yeah. And I was a teacher. I was an English teacher. I got my degree at Auburn University, but I remember seeing in the South, in a private school, a lot of things that I thought, why would a teacher have this liberally leaning viewpoint, especially in a Christian school? And I don't really know where it is all coming from, but I think it starts at the college level when you're being trained to be a teacher. I even remember a lot, if not most of my teachers were very liberally leaning. And if you were not that way, you were sort of looked at as lesser than. And I never contributed to the state education association, the union. And as we know, the NEA, it stands against everything that probably a large majority of us agree with as far as education. But let me just ask you, so you started seeing this and you're being asked to teach things that are totally antithetical to your viewpoint, and which we think are destructive to children. When did you start butting heads? Which I know you did, but tell us how that happened. When did that come to come?
Well, it was during America was given a gift, as hard as it was to have the schools shut down and to have kids go to remote. They were able to get a glimpse of what was going on in the classroom. And now let's remember that the teachers were very aware. I was very aware that I was teaching kids in their home, so there could be a parent in the background. And these teachers were still bold enough to put this stuff into the lessons. And I actually shared a platform we were supposed to upload all of our lessons onto a platform so that parents could log in and see the lessons that were being missed for their child or whatever. And I shared the platform with a teacher that had in California, they have a class called ethnic studies that is required for graduation. And they just started that. And I was able to see all of the lessons that were in this class. And it was left-leaning propaganda from start to finish. And that's where I started posting those lessons online. This was the critical race theory stuff. Our children are being attacked in so many ways. I mean, we could just do a podcast just about the rainbow cult agenda. And that's what I call it, the rainbow cult. There's people, there's like classic LGBTQ that kind of want to live their lives and live and let live or whatever. They're not trying to go after the children. And then there's the rainbow cult that is actively recruiting our children. And it's definitely happening, especially with younger teachers, the under 35, this new generation that's coming in and replacing all of the wonderful teachers that are retiring. This new generation's coming in. But then there's also the hyper race focused stuff, lessons that these kids are getting. And that's what I saw in this ethnic studies course, where these kids were being taught explicit critical race theory. And while this was happening, the mainstream news, for some reason, critical race theory started cycling in the mainstream news, and it was telling the American people that it's not in our K through 12 schools, and that it's just a right-wing talking point. It's a boogeyman of the right wing. And here I am, a public school teacher, seeing the lessons that actually say critical race theory in them, and are teaching these kids these hyper race focused narratives when I'm in a district where the average 12th grader is reading at a 5th or 6th grade level. Why are they taking time away from the classroom to teach these hyper race focused narratives when our kids are struggling in their literacy? I mean, this was a whole class.
Can you tell me in a nutshell, for those who aren't familiar with critical race theory, and both of you have you're multi-ethnic, why do you think it, first of all, in a nutshell, tell us what it is and how it is harmful, other than taking away from what they need to be learning? What does it engender in kids when they are fed critical race theory, especially the children that were in your demographic?
Critical race theory is basically the racialized version of Marxism. That's kind of the high level, but if you go, just basics of what it is, it's just looking at the whole world, looking at the whole country from a race perspective, assuming that everything is racist, everything is white supremacy. And the critical part in the name means that they criticize everything. And that's what the left has decided to do. They criticize everything, criticize the way the school is run, criticize the government, criticize
through the lens of race.
Through the lens of race. Mm-hmm. Let's show the kids, here's all the faults, and they exaggerate and they cherry pick.
Leave out statistics.
They only show one side. Even if, let's say, a person of color, which is the new leftist term now, wants to use is acting racist, well, they're just acting out internalized oppression.
Yeah, that's what they call it.
Everything is just, white people are horrible and they're all oppressors.
And
that's at the bottom line.
And what this is doing to our children is, for one, kids nowadays, especially Black and brown kids that are being fed these narratives, take on such a toxic victim mindset. So when a teacher corrects them in class, they're now saying, oh, it's because you're racist. It's because, in fact, Joshua's sister, she's now a teacher, and she's a 5th grade teacher, and she's a great, wonderful woman. And her students are constantly accusing her of being racist every time they correct her.
Or they'll just throw that word out.
Yeah, they'll just throw it out. You're racist. You're racist. Yeah.
If you mark something wrong on a test, racist.
And luckily, his sister is pretty ethnic looking like Joshua, but that could be a fire. You could get a teacher fired for accusing them of racism. And then it also, when critical race theory when I was seeing these lessons in the classroom and I was starting to post them online, I was then asked to write a guide against critical race theory for BLEXIT, which is Candace Owens' organization. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to know that God was against it. So I really got on my knees and prayed. I was like, I know how I'm feeling about this, but I need your confirmation, Lord, that this is not of you, that this is evil. Mm-hmm. And I prayed, and I remember I was crying that day, because I also knew what it meant for me, because the amount of hate you get from the left speaking up against this is really, really hard, even from your own family and friends. And so I was praying about it. And as soon as I got done with my prayer, I logged into my Instagram, and there was a video of this white girl. She looked about middle school age, maybe 13 years old. And she was testifying to the board members saying, I was told that I have white privilege, even though I was found in a trailer covered in fleas as a baby. And then I was put into foster care where I received every type of abuse. And here I am and she was holding back tears. Here I am being told I have white privilege. And she said it made her cry herself to sleep because she said she's experienced every type of abuse a child could experience. And that's where I was like, thank you, Lord, because God does not look at people based on collectivism. He doesn't say, oh, your whole family's evil, so therefore you're evil, right? He looks at the individual, and that's exactly what critical race theory is doing. Is it collectively looks at people. It says, if you have brown skin, you are oppressed. No matter how successful or how good of a family you have, you're oppressed. If you have white skin, you have privileges. No matter how hard of a life you've had, no matter what you've experienced, you have privileges because of your white skin. And it's silly to me because in America, Asians and Indians actually have the highest income. So if all the institutions were built to support white people, they're not doing a very good job.
Right. Yeah. I've heard that statistic.
Filipinos are surpassing
Nigerians.
People,
wow.
Per capita.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I was very, very proud of our governor. She just put a stop to that critical race content that was creeping into Alabama schools, and the head of that department was forced to resign. So there are states that are, and I know your governor DeSantis is, I think has he put a stop to that in the schools?
Yeah, they've also done laws on it. And those things are good. I do want to warn parents, though, also that the public schools, when they do something like that, usually what they'll do is they'll ban it in the curriculum. But teachers, as you know, we use supplemental materials. It doesn't necessarily ban it in the supplemental materials.
Or from their classroom discussion.
Or from just you close the door and what you're saying, so it helps. It's a start.
Right.
But I mean, we had, what was it? Was it like 5,000 teachers that
signed a pledge
that they were going to do it anyway? And when I see people actually getting in trouble for it, I'll
that's true. We haven't seen teachers fired for it, and especially with the LGBTQ stuff as well. That has not. There's no teacher in this country getting fired for talking to kids about sexual orientation and gender identity in the classroom, and that should be happening. We should be firing these teachers, because that's you. If this is what I tell parents: if you had kids go over to a neighbor's house, and your child came home and was like, "Oh, I was talking with the parents about sexual orientation and gender identity and LGBTQ and all of that, and we were talking about my gender, and we were talking about who I'm attracted to," and you would be like, "You're never going over to that house again."
Right.
Or flip it around. Or flip it around. What if a Christian teacher was secretly baptizing kids in class and not telling the parents, right? Yeah. We would be like, that's inappropriate.
Yeah.
It's not your children. Even though I'm a Christian, I would be like, okay, you should probably let the parents know. You know what I mean? Especially if you're working in a public school, right?
Right.
So they wouldn't want it. So
and one of the main reasons I wanted to have both of you on is because this is a wake-up call to parents. Now, my next foray into the world of children will be when I have grandchildren, but I want my daughters and all of my friends and anyone who might have a child, and I'm going to say school in general, but especially public school, wake the heck up. I'm sorry. That is what, and Callie, that's what I'm just going to shout out your Instagram. The things that you share, they're real. They're not made up. I looked today, the Teen Vogue advertisement blew me away. I'm like, you're kidding me. You're kidding me. Everyone needs to follow your Instagram, because you are sharing things that are actually happening, that are affecting our children and our grandchildren. And we could talk for hours, but that's a whole nother thing that we could have a podcast on. I'm, wanting today to focus on the education. That particular video, Dear Trans Kids, Dear America, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
Never seen anything.
And America 20 years ago would have been, what in the holy hell is this?
Yeah.
What is this?
And kids, all kids have one of these, and they're seeing these things. And I don't even want to get started, because it's just beyond me. Parents, wake up, be vigilant, be aware, and stand up against this. Stand up against it. Now, I want you all to share. You got out of the public education, and tell what you are offering as an alternative. And I did see this also on PragerU. It was wonderful. Would you please, you're going to share all of the links where people can learn more, and they will be on the show notes.
Yes.
So everyone will be able to get more than what you're about to share. They can dig deep into the show notes.
Yes. I was actually just on Dr. Phil episode on Tuesday. So if you caught that was pretty intense, but
you did a fabulous job.
I just want to tell everyone that this is really crazy to me. The place that I'm at right now, owning my own school with my husband, being on Dr. Phil, like, this is not something that I asked for, not something that I had a private Facebook page. That's all I had. I didn't have any other social media. And this was about 3.5 years ago. And the Black Lives Matter riots happened, and I started posting about it because there was a lot of people and a lot of Christians that were getting deceived by it. And I just started posting to my friends saying, you guys, this is not from the Lord. This is satanic. They're chanting to dead people. They're burning stuff. And so I just want to remind, people that really listen to the Lord right now, because he's really calling a lot of people to speak up. And if he's calling you to speak up, even though you may have a job, I was still a public school teacher when I first started speaking up, and that's very in a liberal area. Even though you may have a job that you're scared you might lose, or you don't think that your voice is good enough, you see other people like Candace Owens, or you see these amazing people that are on the front lines, or even myself, and you're like, wow, why do I need to speak up? No, we need every single voice in this fight right now.
She was not a speaker.
No.
I was the one in ministry.
Yes.
I was doing preaching. And I'd be up preaching, and she'd like, just go cook for potlucks for the
Yes, I loved it. Like being behind the.
Want to be on the stage.
No,
if you're like that. She was like that.
And God will prepare you, and He will open doors, and He will shut doors for what you need to do. And the door that He opened for Joshua and I was to open our own school called Exodus Institute, and it's an online K through 12 school that's fully accredited. And if you live in a school choice state like Arizona or Florida, that our school can be free for you and for your child.
Arizona, where?
Arizona, Florida. There's more of
There's like 6 states that passed universal school choice this year alone.
And you're fully accredited.
Yes.
Now, is that accreditation? I know, is that a private accreditation, or I know there's SACS accreditation here.
Yeah. But to be more specific, we have 2 different programs, and one of our programs is a K through 12 online program. That program is fully accredited. It's actually globally accredited in most countries, but nationally as well through Cognia. And there's different accrediting agencies. But yeah, our students can go to basically any U.S. college and have a diploma that's just as good as if they went to a public school.
Yes.
Basically speaking. So our program is very
K through 12. All
K
subjects,
12,
and they're
also and even like extracurricular stuff. Like we have like French and horticulture and like stuff that a lot of private schools don't have. So we provide the opportunity for parents who want to pull their kids out of school but don't know how to do the teaching themselves. They can go through our program, and it's fully online. We do all the teaching,
and they can choose. They could do a full program where our school will do everything, or they could do a la carte. Like, let's say a parent doesn't want to do math, but they want to do everything else. They can come to math. Math.
Or they want to catch up on classes, or they want to accelerate, credit recovery, or just summer school. We do all that. So that's the fully accredited program, the K through 12 program. And then we have another program, which we're really proud of, which is, if you've heard of Hillsdale.
I love Hillsdale. Hillsdale, yes. Yes.
Right. So they provide kind of a conservative perspective on a lot of these, topics for students. Well, this program is kind of like the Hillsdale for K through 12, but we start actually at 5th grade for this second program. It's enrichment lessons, supplemental lessons. These are not accredited. These are extra. And they're designed to refute and debunk all the woke leftist narratives that these
and they teach critical thinking, correct? I was reading, which is one of the most important things parents can make sure their kids get, is the ability to think critically, because they're getting a barrage of nonsense and lies.
Yep.
Okay.
And they're going to get it. They're going to get it if they're in public school, or even if they're not. They're going to hear it from their friends.
They're going
to see it on the movies,
social media,
or if they go to college.
All over. If they go to college, right?
And then we also need to make sure that our kids are ready for the future, because we really need to think about the future right now, because the left is moving so fast. And they're radicalizing their kids so thoroughly. This new generation, Gen Z, is actually not switching. You know how people like my husband and I were millennials? We used to be on the left, and then we switched to the right. That's not what's happening with the younger generations. They are very radicalized. So it's really important for our kids, as they're growing up, to be able to counter these other kids that are growing up that are going to be adults trying to run this country.
Oh my goodness,
we have to prepare them.
So when they get these arguments from their college professor or from their friends telling them some propaganda about Marxism, what these lessons do is they help break those things down and show why it's false. So she's got a lesson on Venezuela that goes into what is inflation. So we teach the kids,
and they have an activity where they track inflation in the U.S., all the costs, and it's so cute. They draw pictures that we've taken all. Luckily, we had, even though public school education is lame, we had really good training on how to teach well. And so I also taught the English learners, which I consider everyone an English learner, even though I taught kids that were technically, from another country. But I think we're all learning and growing in our ability to communicate. I know in the last 3 years, I've become a lot better in my interviews. Right. And so I've been able to apply those skills to these lessons. So a lot of visuals, a lot of like hands-on activities, And it's really awesome to see these kids turn in these lessons and understanding these concepts like inflation. We allowed one fourth grader into the 5th through 12th grade program. And we were like, the mom said, yeah, I think he's going to do well. Oh my gosh, this kid is he understands what inflation is. He understands what socialism is. We have a whole debunking Black Lives Matter myths lesson. He did that one. I'm like, this little fourth grader, I don't know what he
That's did. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So what does it look like? Let's say you've got a set of parents listening or watching right now, and they say, okay, what does it look like if my child, whether you're homeschooling or you just want to pull them out and let you do all the schooling? What does that look like?
The enrichment is for homeschool parents that already have a curriculum they like to use, but they want to have extra lessons for their kids. And that's video on-demand lessons taught by Joshua and I.
Self-paced.
Okay.
Yeah, self-paced. And then they have worksheets that they print out that go along with it. And then sometimes they have activities that are done offline. And they're short. They're like anywhere from 20 to 45-minute lessons. We like to not go too long. Mm-hmm. And what's extra incredible about that is that we only charge $20 a month.
I know. I saw that.
It's really low. And the thing is
unreal. That shows that you believe in this.
Yeah.
That does not even cover your expenses.
No, it doesn't.
I still do so much other work.
We have to do a lot of other work.
Yeah.
It's not a big moneymaker.
No.
But we believe in the idea that we want to make this accessible to all parents. So it's literally, once you pay that first $20 and you start, you have access to the entire library of lessons, and we're constantly adding more.
We also
do them at your own pace.
And then we also grade the work that the kids turn in. I mean, it's not like the most extensive grading. I give like a small paragraph, but
Okay. How many do you like? What's an average enrollment in your enrichment?
So right now we have 60 kids in our enrichment. We have 60. Yeah, we have 60 in our full program.
Did they ever be on Zoom where they get to see one another?
The full program, they have that, but the enrichment is just it's on, and we
because they're self-paced.
Yeah, it's self-paced, and that would be $20 a month. That you need to add a zero to that if you want me to come to Zoom.
I was about to say,
I'm very busy.
Oh my goodness. Well, so tell us then. So you have 60 currently in your enrichment. What about the K through 12 Exodus? What about that?
That's getting closer to 70 for that part as well. So between the two of them, we're getting close to 150 kids, a little less than that. This is the first full year that we're just finishing up our first full school year, and so we're really going to be pushing a lot next year to expand. This first year was laying the groundwork. Next year, it's going to be, and to be clear, we have staff that teaches our K through 12 program. We could not teach every lesson for every grade, right? So we have staff that are helping with that. The push this coming year is to go into all of these new states that are passing school choice, universal school choice. People may not realize, look it up in your state. You might have a voucher system that just passed in your state that pays the whole tuition, where you could go for free. And there's no income requirement. A lot of these states, Florida, there's no income requirement. It's available to every student in the state. And that the cost of it would cover our school completely. You could go for free. So this is the kind of thing that we're going to be pushing. The other thing as well is that if somebody is a church, or part of a church, a small church that has a few students and wants to start a little like a micro school at your church, it's empty during the week, we can help with that. You could use our program, our accredited program, and basically open a little micro school underneath.
And they can meet at the church?
Yes. So that's like for parents that can't, if there's both parents are working, well, you could start a pod and hire someone to monitor the kids, but they don't necessarily have to be a credentialed teacher.
Depends on the state.
And it could be different, various age levels. And that's what's great about the online is that it can be tailored to the different age levels. So there can be a classroom of all different types of kids. And then there's projects they can complete together. But when it comes to individual instruction, like math and stuff, they can go to their level.
Yeah. We should probably say where to go. It's the school is called Exodus Institute, but the website, we say thinkexodus.org.
And all of this, if you're driving, you don't have to stop to write this down. Every bit, all of these links will be in the show notes, which I encourage everyone to go to because it will have every way to contact you all. We'll link to a lot of the things that you've shared that I think people need to be aware of, as well as the school, but it is Think Exodus. And I will say, if I had children at home, I would all day long have all three of my daughters doing the enrichment. That's a gift. And
we've even had adults asked to do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
oh yeah,
to
be informed. Right.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. You're learning about like how to debunk the systemic racism. America's systemically racist is what these people will say.
But we also,
how do you debunk that?
We also have very uplifting lessons. Like I have a whole George Washington Carver lesson. Yeah, heroes. People like Booker T. Washington, these men that were born into slavery and became great men in this country. And their philosophy of healing race relations was to just really live by example.
Right.
And George Washington Carver, he was actually one of the first Black men to be able to go in the South and go into a hostile area towards Black America and go into a room with white Americans that were hostile. He was actually hired by the government to go and speak to them to kind of repair race relations. And he did it with sharing about plants and God.
Wow.
And by the end of the room, these white guys that were supposedly, hostile towards Black were giving him standing ovation. And so he was sharing with them his humanity. He was sharing with them that, instead of being so focused on the skin color and all of this is what I have to bring. And that was Booker T. Washington's and George Washington. Washington and George Washington Carver's philosophy was Black America needs to show what they can contribute to America instead of and let it be like, wow, look at the schools they built, look at the wealth they have. And unfortunately, that philosophy has been lost. And so I'm trying to bring that back because
striving for excellence.
Yeah, striving for excellence
instead of asking for handouts, which is what the left is pushing.
Yeah.
So what your mission and goal is, which should be the mission of most parents, is to raise strong leaders who want to give back and who reject the victim mentality and reject the racism that is being propagated by all of these things that you have stood against. And I just applaud you both. Well, I am thrilled that we got to address this before we sign off, because I know you're both so busy. What would you like to say? Is there anything else you would like to say to parents before we sign off?
Well, I would just say that you need to take this seriously. If you're let's say you're in a nice area, let's say you're in Florida where they pass these great laws and we have a governor who's on it, right? You know what? Your local school district still has a lot of authority, and the local teacher of the individual classes still has a lot of power. I always like to tell people, when those doors close, the teachers can get away with a lot of stuff. And yes, it's in the specific classes that Kali was talking about, but it's also in every class, in English classes, there's socialism being taught in English classes. And so don't take this lightly. Don't think, well, I'm in an area where, people are nice and they're not pushing this stuff. You'd be surprised what's going on in the closed doors in the classrooms. So I would never personally, and I understand people have limitations, but I would never allow a child of mine to go into a public school. If you can at all, pull them out of these schools, private or homeschool. And even private, you need to look into it, because even some religious private schools will push, some of this left-wing stuff. So just be informed, be aware, be hands-on, and there's opportunities. It's never been easier. What's your excuse, right? You can get school choice in like half of the states in the country. It'll be for free. Find someone. If it's not us, find a school that works for you, and go for the best option for your child. Take it seriously.
And I want to quickly add to that even if you're not a parent, you have a responsibility for the future of this country and for the future of children that you may know, your grandkids, godkids. Just what is it going to be like in 10 years, considering how fast everything is moving? So I really want to encourage people to take care of themselves mentally, spiritually, and physically, because when you start getting into the front lines like I did, or you start fighting for these things, or you start pushing back, you will get attacked spiritually and sometimes physically, sometimes mentally, and people will come after you, and but you have to stay strong and you have to take care of yourself, because we need people to really be able to fight back what's going on right now, because it's such a spiritual battle. There's an agenda to destroy this nation and destroy our nation's children. And we have to stand in the way, but we can't do that if we're weak and dealing with a lot of stuff ourselves. So really take care of yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually. I mean, that's what I've had to do to take doing this. And that part of it was getting a puppy.
Oh, yes. That makes life so much easier and better. Well, I just want to thank you both. Thank you for what you're doing. I wish you the absolute best. And Kali, you keep putting out that Instagram content. I don't know how you come up with all that, because I know what it's like to try to keep up content, and you're doing an excellent job of keeping us informed in a lighthearted way that is a gift, because what you're sharing is not pleasant, but every parent needs to know it. And you do it with a class and a touch of levity that, you know, is much needed when we're having to do that kind of stuff. But thank you both so much. I wish you both the best, and you have a platform anytime you want to come back on the SavvyCast.
We would love to come back. Yes.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.